afternoon, my little garlic bulbs. Welcome to my sitting room and welcome to my first ever YouTube video. My name is Stephanie. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm a student nurse and I've fallen in love with running. So you're probably here because you're my friend and I forced you to come and watch my videos. Or maybe you're a diabetic and you kind of want to hear about my experiences. Maybe you know nothing about diabetes and you kind of want to know a little bit about diabetes and running. So that's kind of what I want to do here. I want to raise awareness about diabetes. I'd maybe kind of want to inspire other diabetics to start running or maybe to start exercising if they don't, and also to have a little bit of fun. So I'm going to put some timestamps into the description box, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what type 1 diabetes is, a little bit about my experience with type 1 diabetes, and then I have like a mini Q&A kind of to do at the end. So what is type 1 diabetes? In order for us to understand what type 1 diabetes is, we kind of have to understand what happens whenever we eat carbohydrates. So, whenever you eat carbohydrates like bread, rice, pasta, sweets, crisps, chocolate, all the good stuff, your body breaks those carbohydrates down into sugars in your blood. Now, in order for your body to use that sugar as energy, your body will produce a hormone from your pancreas called insulin. That insulin then will act like a little key and it'll open a door in your cell so that that sugar can get into your cell and then it can be used as energy. As a type 1 diabetic, my immune system attacks the beta cells in my pancreas, which are the cells responsible for producing insulin, so I don't produce insulin anymore. So whenever my body breaks down the carbohydrates into sugar, the sugar just roams around my blood. So I have to take an injection of artificial insulin, which acts the same way as insulin in your body would, your natural insulin would, so that I can use that as energy as well. I'm going to link a few videos and maybe a few websites and things in the description as well, so that you can know more about what type 1 diabetes is. And in the future, I think I'll make a video specifically dedicated to what type 1 diabetes is, and I can go as in-depth as people want. So we all love talking about ourselves, particularly me. If you know me, you know I could probably talk about myself for like 20 minutes just without even stopping. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit, very briefly, about my experience. So I was diagnosed with diabetes nearly 18 years ago, whenever I was 7. I think kind of the biggest symptom I had was constantly having to pass urine, just constantly running to the toilet, drinking loads and loads of water, extreme thirst. I don't think I was eating very much, and I just felt and looked generally unwell. So, in order for you to be diagnosed with diabetes, you have to have a blood sugar test. So that's just, they prick your finger, they put a little bit of blood onto a test strip, and then it tells you the millimoles of sugar in 1 litre of blood. So that reading should really be between like 5 and 7, but as a diabetic, specifically at the start, they kind of tell you, you know, between like 4 and 9 or 4 and 10, just keep it in those single figures, but don't go too low. So whenever I first got my blood sugar checked, I think it was 18. I was taken to the hospital. I can't really remember a lot more about what really went on, but they put me on an insulin regime, kept me in for a few days, make sure that, you know, I was able to take the insulin myself and everything. And a little bit of food education was given. Now that's changed drastically since I was diagnosed to now. So I'll talk about that later in another video as well. So then we were sent off on our merry little way for me and my family to cope with me being type 1 diabetic, which I think everyone coped with pretty well. I think not just something that like affects the person that's diagnosed, it's something that affects the family as well. Being diabetic, it's had a lot of ups and downs throughout the years. It's constantly changing, constantly. So if I do the same thing today and the same thing tomorrow, my blood sugars aren't going to be the exact same. It's crazy. It just, every little thing affects it, but you just kind of have to learn to deal with that. And you know, your blood sugar might be perfect for 3 or 4 weeks straight, and then something will throw it off and it won't be, and you'll have to readjust. But if you're constantly on top of it, which no one is 100% of the time, and I'll put my hands up right now and say that like it's probably 75% of the time where I'm on top of it, and the other 25% I just be like, I'm giving up, I don't care, I don't want to do this anymore. But you kind of have to, because otherwise you'll die. So I took a wee bit of a break there, went and made myself a smoothie and got my wee notebook that has my questions in it. First one is, why do you run? This one kind of made me smile because I run just for fun. And I also run because it means I get to spend time with my sister and my dad. So about 3 months ago or 2.5 months ago or something, the uni actually emailed out, a man from my uni emailed out, does anyone want to do a couch to 5k? So I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Told my dad. Dad was like, I'll do it with you. Then my sister was like, I'll do it with you. So it ended up now just being like a wee family fun day out 3 times a week. How does running affect your blood sugars? I'm going to talk more about this from a scientific point of view and from a my experience point of view in the my experience video that I'll do eventually. But it kind of puts my blood sugars up, but it also can put my blood sugars down. It's a little bit weird. So your blood sugars can spike after exercise, and I'll explain that in the other video. But usually, what happens if I run at like 7 o'clock in the evening? The next morning I'll probably wake up a bit low, and that's just because when you're exercising and after you're exercising, your body's using up a lot of energy and a lot of carbs, and sometimes I just don't have enough energy there. I don't have enough carbs there uh, to keep that going. How does it affect your blood sugars? Running affects my blood sugars in that I go low sometimes as soon as I'm finished the run, and sometimes hours later, sometimes it's the next morning. I'm going to talk more about how running affects your body as a type 1 diabetic in the video where I talk about diabetes, because this could get very technical and very scientific, but basically for me it generally puts my blood sugar low at some point. What are the benefits of exercising as a type 1 diabetic? So even though it does lower my blood sugars, um, most of the time, or the majority of the time, it'll kind of help regulate them. Um, when I'm exercising, I feel a lot better. You know, like my mental well being is unreal whenever I'm running or exercising or just being out in the outdoors. So then that kind of, affects my mood, makes me want to get up that wee bit earlier in the morning, makes me want to eat better, which also will help my diabetes. So it's kind of, it doesn't directly affect any one part, kind of has a knock-on effect of my entire being. So now we'll go to the opposite. Are there any difficulties diabetics face when exercising? So obviously I can just answer this from my own point of view, but yes, yes, there is. On Sunday, we ran an 11k run. My blood sugars were 22 that morning. They were 17 about an hour before the run. And so I was expecting to have a really crappy run. About halfway through, I had to take an energy gel, and I just felt like I had no energy. I felt like it was a really difficult run. I felt like I was just overheating because it was an overcast day, so I took my cap off. I had taken my t-shirt off, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so difficult. But as soon as I finished running, I was like, I feel amazing. This is great. And when I looked at my stats, I had matched I think my second best pace ever. We had done it in like an hour and like 5 minutes or something. All these like wonderful stats were coming through, and I was like, oh my god. Because of my diabetes, I thought this was going to be crap, but then because of what was recorded on my little like Huawei sports watch thing, it actually turned out really well. So I think it makes a lot more of a difference on your mentality when exercising, if that makes sense. So one of the biggest difficulties is your diabetes affecting your mental state, which can kind of affect your exercise, but not in the way that you think. I suppose other difficulties I face when exercising is going low. If I go low in the middle of running or doing any kind of exercise, I can't just take a bar of chocolate, or I can't just take a little glucose shot or take an energy gel and just start back into it. I have to sit and wait for at least 15 minutes to recheck my blood sugar, and then it might not even be up to a good enough rate for me to exercise. And then even if it is, if I start exercising again, it might drop. So a lot of the time, if I go low in the middle of an exercise, I just stop. I don't go back to it for the rest of the day. I be like, okay, that first 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, that was good enough for today, and that'll do. Other difficulties, I suppose, is the after effects. I go low hours after exercise quite a lot of the time. So if I exercise, if I go for a run at 7 o'clock in the evening, the next morning at like 5, 6, 7 a.m., my blood sugar could drop low. So I'll be waking up, I'll be covered in sweat, I'll be panicking because I'm like, oh gosh, I'm low, I'm gonna die. And then I'll have to go and get a little glucose juice before I start the day. Not really sure if I've answered everything in the way that it should be answered. I'm not really sure if I've gotten too rambly throughout the video. I wanted to try and keep it short enough so that nobody would get bored. I'm sure people still might get bored. It's just what it is, I suppose. If you've made it this far, tell me your favorite color in the comments. Mine's is green. So, thank you for watching.